Mark from Woodsley Summercraft here. Today I've got a piece of hackberry. It's a bowl blank. It's about 11 inches by about 3.5 inches. I cut this a couple of years ago with my chainsaw. It's been drying in my shop in the corner for a long time. I had it wrapped in some saran wrap, and it has had some pretty funky stuff growing on it down there in the corner. So I have just tested the moisture content, and it's down around 16%, maybe a little less. So I'm thinking I want to get this thing turned today. Hackberry is very hard wood. It's native to southern Ontario where I live. This piece actually came, I believe, from Pelee Island. So we shall see. Let's get this thing unwrapped and on the faceplate. I'm going to get this thing unwrapped out of the saran wrap and get a faceplate mounted to it. Now I'm going to have to wear a respirator. Now this was sealed, so a lot of this stuff you're seeing is the sealant that I put on it. But it is pretty nasty looking. A little bit of something growing there. That was growing there, it's not growing now. So it could be spalting. It could be some spalting going on. We will find out. I'm going to be wearing a respirator, like I say, throughout this whole process, as you should with any potentially spalted wood. Okay, so I've taken my respirator off for a minute. I've got the underside almost done. As you can see, there's quite a crack just through here. It does only go down about 3/4 of an inch, but I think I think I'm going to leave it there, but I think I'm going to use some CA glue to kind of repair it as best I can. I could turn it away, but I want to try and keep the depth of the bowl, and I'm hoping that on the underside, the inside of the bowl doesn't show that crack, because I think it will just be in the foot, but we'll see that when we get there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this off the lathe and I'm going to put some CA glue in there just to kind of get rid of that, and I'll put some fine sawdust in there to try and hide it as best I can. Okay, so there's the crack, if you can see that. Runs right across the base, but it's fairly shallow. I could turn it away, but I think I'm just going to leave it there. I could regret that, but we'll see. So the first thing I'm going to do is just drip some thin CA into the crack. And then I'm going to put some fine sawdust. I just sanded this to get some sawdust from the same piece of wood, and I'm just going to rub that into that crack from all angles. Try and force it into there. And just knock that off. Put a little bit more CA glue in there. Put some more sawdust in there, because then we'll turn this back down to where we want it now that that crack is essentially repaired. I'm going to give it a shot of Activator 2 in a minute. Okay, so the repair job is done, and I've sanded this down to 100 grit, and I'm going to continue sanding, but I'm going to be wet sanding this. It just helps reduce the amount of dust, but I'm happy with the repair. It's not that big of a deal, I don't think. So let's get this thing continued on with sanding, and I'll come back to you when I'm at 320 grit. So just applying some mineral oil so that I can sand it without all of that dust. Starting at 120 grit now. Work my way up to 320, where I can clean all the oil out with alcohol and then continue with my usual finish. It's nice, there's no tear out in that at all. Okay, so this has been sanded to 320 grit with oil applied. Ideally, if you can sand in reverse as well as forward, you get a much cleaner finish because the fibers will get sanded going both ways. So I'm going to clean the oil off with alcohol and then denib. You can do this by hand or with the lathe spinning. And again, if you do that in both directions, will be even better. Okay, so from this point I put some sanding sealer on. 3 coats of sanding sealer. And that is so that the wax finish will actually sit on top of the sealer as opposed to getting soaked into the wood and dulling. That's kind of what happens when you don't seal your wood. Your finish can soak into the wood and dull. And denib it with a scouring pad. That's nice and smooth now, ready for Yorkshire grit. Time for some Hampshire Sheen high gloss. Okay, so it's been sitting for a few minutes. I'm just going to start buffing this now, and you can do this on high speed. At about 1200 RPM I can increase on that. Okay, so this is 10 coats of Hampshire Sheen High Gloss and 1 coat of Hampshire Sheen Microcrystalline Paste Wax. Absolutely beautiful, shiny finish, and it's fingerprint resistant. You have to make sure that when you're buffing this off that you completely remove any residue. So when you're buffing it, watch the lines in the wax. You'll see the lines moving in the wax, and when that stops doing that, you know that you're getting close to having no more residue left on the bowl, and that's important, otherwise you will still get smears in your finish when you handle it. So you need to make sure that there is no more movement in that wax. Okay, I've now got the bowl turned around in the chuck. It's in my Easy Wood chuck. Put a piece of paper towel in the jaws just to prevent any marring or marking of the underside of the bowl. I don't usually do that, but it's a good thing to do, I think, as long as it doesn't adjust the angle of the bowl. Anyway, so it's turned around. I'm going to put a respirator back on, and I'm going to turn the inside of the bowl. Alright, so it's back to wet sanding. I've sanded this to 100 grit. No real tear out, no tool marks. So I'm going to wet sand this now from 120 up to 320, and then do the same process. I've got this bowl fairly thin, it's about 1/8 of an inch at the rim and obviously thicker at the base because I have a recess in the base. But it's fairly consistent down the wall to about there, and then it gets thicker right here, but not too much thicker. I think this is going to be quite lovely, and the crack does not appear on the inside of the bowl, which I was a little bit worried, but I'm not too worried, but I'd rather not see any of that crack on the inside. It's barely noticeable on the base. And I will come back to you when I'm at 320. Okay, so I've got this sanded to 320 grit. There are no tool marks that I can visually see, and there's no sanding marks either that I can see. So what I'm going to do now is clean it with alcohol to get any dirt out of that grain, and the oil will come out too with the alcohol. And that has raised the grain a little bit, so I'm going to just denib that slightly with a scouring pad. Now what I'm going to do is apply 3 coats of sanding sealer. Okay, so I'm now going to apply some Yorkshire grit. So now I'm going to apply some Hampshire Sheen High Gloss. I'm going to go 10 coats again of Hampshire Sheen High Gloss. So I will come back to you when I'm at the point to put some microcrystalline wax on. Okay, so I've got about 10 coats of high gloss on the inside now too. What I'm going to do is apply some Hampshire Sheen microcrystalline wax to give it that added shine and a little bit of fingerproof protection and water resistance too. And there it is, an 11" by 3.5" Hackberry bowl. I could be wrong on the wood species, but I think that's what it is. I'm quite happy with it. Even with the crack in the bottom, it doesn't really take anything away from the bowl. From the top side you can't see it. So please, if you like this project, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below. And I'll see you again for another project. Take care now.